Please join me in welcoming the artists Cassils, Tiamat Legion Medusa, Cecilia Gentili, and our moderator, Griffin Hansbury.
Hello. Thank you all for being here. So each member of the panel is going to do a little 5-minute presentation just speaking about themselves and wherever the topic takes them, and then we'll have a conversation and then open it up for comments, questions from all of you. So Cecilia, you're going to begin.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Hi everybody. So excited to be here with all of you. My name is Cecilia Gentili, and I am a transsexual woman from Argentina. I was born in 1972 in the middle of what it... Wait, I thought you all would be surprised that I was born in 1972. So I'm gonna say this again, okay? So I was born in 1972. I know. I always get the same natural reaction from people. So, you know, I grew up in a dictatorship in Argentina, and that shaped a lot of my ideas around power and democracy and regimes and things like that. I grew up without the internet, as you can imagine, in the 70s. So, and I grew up in a very small town in Argentina where I didn't know anybody like me. And for many years, I thought that, you know, that I was crazy, or like I thought I was an extraterrestrial for many years. I had this idea that extraterrestrials left me behind by mistake in there, because I'm from an area in Argentina that was very known for extraterrestrial activities. And I thought, like, this makes sense. You know, and for many years, I waited for them to come and pick me up. And they didn't, obviously. And here I am in New York City, you know. But I would take it going to another planet for a little bit, you know. I would be okay with that. So I moved to the United States in the year 2000 after having a hard time. Not just for being trans in Argentina, like, you know, the dictatorship ended in '84. Democracy, yay. But, you know, the mentality of people that live for many years under a dictatorship doesn't change with the word democracy, right? So we had a democracy, but, you know, you go to Argentina now and you still find people who are going to tell you, like, we were better with the dictators, right? And I just can't wrap my mind around it. But, you know, the mentality of people didn't change. So the reality of trans people after the dictatorship continued to be really bad for many, many decades, inclusively until now, right? So in Argentina, two things are happening at the same time that don't make sense. Trans people have a whole bunch of rights, and trans people are being killed at the highest numbers in South America after Brazil. So it's really difficult to understand how those two things can live at the same time, right? So as my friends were being murdered, I thought, like, I'm going to leave, and I came to the United States, and I truly thought that people would be waiting for me at the airport with jobs. I thought, like, people were going to be waiting for me as soon as I came down of the plane, which didn't happen. And I moved here, and I was a sex worker. I started doing sex work at age 17, and I have not finished yet doing sex work, but I don't do it as much. I just kept the good clients, the one that pay the most. No more $5 blowjobs. but I'll take it if I need it. I was a sex worker here. I am a drug user, and I use a lot of heavy drugs that I don't use them much all the time. I am very much into a harm reduction approach. Unfortunately, I went to treatment, which is a very harmful experience. Like treatment spaces are very harmful. Somehow, I use whatever I could use from treatment. But because I am a sex worker and a person who uses drugs, I also was arrested many times, and I spent some time in jail, which is not fun. And I was also in deportation procedures, which was going to take me back to Argentina, but I finally got an asylum, and here I am. And I became a citizen, and I renounce communism, and as I was like swearing, they make you tell you that you won't engage with any communist shit, and I was like, this is crazy. And they make you tell that you embrace capitalism, and I was like, this is crazy, but I need these papers. I fucking need these papers. I was like, yes, I hate communism, yes. And here I am, and that's who I am. And I have a consulting company where I get to work with 10 amazing people who are all trans. We are all trans. We fully discriminate cisgender people. And, and we work with government, we work with nonprofits, and we work with for-profits because we love corporate money. Doing the best that we can to help them. And I am in a relationship with the same person for the last 10 years, which is, I cannot believe that I'm with the same person for 10 years. Maybe it's because we are open, that helps, right? We are polyamorous, so that helps, but he's my main person. And I love him very much, and that was 5 minutes,
Great.
right?
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Legion.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to say, is this on?
Maybe this one?
Yeah.
Here's this one.
Okay. Can we take that one? Okay. Well, everyone, the first thing I want to say is that no, I didn't do this overnight, but my mother makes me do this every day. I don't want to do it, but she does. And you should see the people's expressions when I tell them this little story, and they go, really? Wow. And I'm like, yeah, okay. No, my name is Tiamat Legion Medusa. A lot of people know me as the Dragon Lady. I am no longer a lady, so therefore, I am no longer the Dragon Lady. I am just simply Legion the Dragon, or Medusa, because I will always be Medusa. Recently, I had a name change approved by the Court of Los Angeles, and I'm in the process of finalizing the last couple of things on changing my name on my debit cards and all that stuff. So Social Security has been done, my insurance has been done. I'm just like, on the last two things, like, I got 2 more things to check off, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm officially Legion, the Dragon. So, I was born Richard Hernandez in the state of Arizona. My parents separated when I was 3 years old, so I was, at the age of 5, my mother and my stepfather abandoned me and 2 siblings in the middle of the woods at nighttime deep in the heart of the state of Texas, in the land of the western diamondback rattlesnake. And I mentioned that particular snake because when I started my transformation journey, I embarked on a double journey. I was transitioning from a male to a female, but I also started my transition from a human to a reptilian, a non-human. I don't consider myself to be human anymore, or just human anymore. I'll always be part human, and I can deal with that. as long as I'm just only part human. I don't want to be all human. So I'm fulfilling my dream of becoming the reptilian that I feel, that I know that I am inside. I relate to reptiles. I relate to the animal kingdom a lot more easily than I can relate to the humanity, to the human kingdom. So that's just a little bit of me. I was raised in South Texas after my parents had abandoned me. I was raised by my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. Went to school in a small town called Bruni, Texas. I graduated from high school in 1979, and I went to live in Houston, where I started my life on my own. And eventually, I would meet my first partner of 10 years, and then I had a second partner of 20 years who died 14 years ago. And I'm single now. I've been single since my late partner died, and I have 3 dogs. They are my world. They are my babies, and that's one reason why I'm not staying longer this weekend here. I'm going right back to Los Angeles after this because my dogs are waiting for me. So I started my male to female transition back in 2012 when I started hormone treatment, and I felt good. I felt good about myself. I thought, oh man, finally, the girl in me gets to live. But sadly, since 2012 till now, for the last 9, 10 years, I began to realize that this whole transgender thing in my head was really just in my head, because I was trying to placate to what other people wanted to see when they saw me. I mean, do you think of transgender when you see me walking down the street? I mean, I'm walking down the street. Do any of y'all automatically say, oh, that's a transsexual, transgender person, a woman? No. Well, to solve that problem, I had severe body dysmorphia. And in order to solve that and to reconcile myself to myself and be happy within myself, I decided to start transforming myself into a creature, something other than human. I wanted to be a reptilian, and I'm well on my way to doing that now. I'm one of the most modified people in the world. I've been on social media, I've been on television, I've made my appearances as a guest in TV talk shows. And the reason I'm doing it is not because like some people say, oh, there she goes again. She's such an attention hog. She just wants attention. Like, well, that might be how you see it, but I think that I have something to say, and I have a life that I have lived, and through my experiences, I can possibly help others. And then also through recognizing and seeing other people's experiences, I can also be helped. It's a symbiotic relationship. That's how I see it. But what I'm getting, and some of my questions earlier were pointed to this, and that is that the transgender community overall, not everybody, but just as a whole, the transgender community has rejected me. I am seen as a freak, nothing more than a freak, and I am making the entire transgender community look like a freak. So bad, bad dragon. No, no, no. We want you to have big boobs, just not big horns. You know?
Legion, thank you. I wanted to point out, do you see all of the dragons that are with us today? In this room?
Oh, yes.
We're surrounded by dragons.
Yes, love it.
Thank you for that.
I feel right at home.
So
Yeah,
we're gonna go to Legion. We're gonna go to Cassils, and then we're gonna have a conversation after that.
Yeah,
You ready?
yeah.
Okay. Cassils, are you ready for your piece?
I'm ready.
Okay. Thank you.
You want this one?
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Cassils. I had like a presentation, but I think I'm just going to chat, and I might show a video at the end. Wonderful to meet you. Yes, I've learned of your work through also your collaborations with Carlos Mota over there. Beautiful work, and Cecilia, I'm a huge fan. So it's wonderful to be on, to share this space with you all. My name is Cassils. I'm an artist. I work, I like to say, I was talking with my friend Dorian back there and how we hate the word multidisciplinary. I'm going to say I'm a disciplinary slut. Yeah, yes. So yes, I work across many different mediums, contemporary dance, sculpture, writing in the sky with water vapor, fire, and I think, the topic of body modification is something that's interesting to me because when I was a kid, my path to art and my path to my body came through an initial sort of trauma of being like very, very ill as a kid and almost dying, and being told by doctors that there was nothing wrong with me and that it was psychosomatic, despite vomiting for like hours on end for multiple years until finally bile ducts rupturing and needing 3 surgeries and then almost dying in surgery. And so grappling with my mortality at a very young age and having a tremendous distrust for the medical industrial complex instilled in me. And that was very conflicting as a trans person because as someone who has thought, for the last 25 years about gender-affirming surgery, I just realized through like a therapeutic session that I had involving some MDMA and a very nice therapist that I actually had woken up during my surgery and had repressed that memory. So, I don't have a lot of trust for doctors. And so it's like, okay, so how then do we think about agency and how do we think about the body when so much of this idea of like sovereignty and identity and agency is wrapped up in medical care, which is wrapped up in a medical industrial complex, which is based on profiting off of our bodies, right? And so one of my life paths came to learn about physiology, anatomy, nutrition, and really think about how I could hack my body, flag gender, but also like use my body in my art practice both as an instrument and an image. Thinking about, all right, if I'm gonna light myself on fire and you can only breathe out, then that means, because if you breathe in, you will burn your esophagus. That means you have to have like the longest exhale possible. So what are the training protocols of an underwater, deep water diver? So you start like running up hills with a backpack full of bricks, or if I'm going to melt ice with my body heat, checking in with someone, finding out the signs for hypothermia, understanding what to look for, but being able to push the body, but not in a way that is self-sacrificing or masochistic. It's very much about understanding the limits and knowing that so many of the limits placed on us are actually imposed limits. And so what are the ways that we can educate ourselves to take agency over our bodies? And so much of my work is about these sort of what people perceive to be extreme acts, but they're actually incredibly well researched and done in a very sort of holistic way. I think a lot about the role of technology in relationship to the body. Specifically, when we're thinking about performance art, we're often thinking about the document. I think about performing against the document. So much of our lives is increasingly streamed, right? And this like role of mediation is one that, in my mind, creates a sort of apathy and kills empathy, actually. We're in the middle of witnessing an active genocide right now that is being streamed live, and I think about what does it mean for us to use these sort of modalities and technologies. So a lot of the work that I do kind of performs against technology, making an artwork that is in a complete blackout container. The only way in which the artwork is made visible is through the use of a photographic strobe, which will burn a sort of after image into your retina, turning everyone in the audience into a living archive, thinking about what it is, how it is that we preserve memory, who is it that makes it into the archive, whose histories are we caring about and lifting up, and whose are we discarding, right? So these are all things that I think about in relationship to the way that we can manipulate not only the body, but the body in relationship to technology. And so it is true that a lot of my work is about these singular sort of physical acts, but more and more I've become really interested in the idea of the collective body when we're thinking about body modification. How do we modify these larger social powers that are actually pressing upon us? Like I think of the body as a sculptural object being formed by societal pressure, right? Each of us is being formed by societal pressures, by white supremacy, right? By legacies of colonialism, right? And many more, right? These oppressions around these ideas of what we think gender should be, right? Welcome. I love you as a dragon and a woman. It's a beautiful thing, And yeah, and I think more and more the importance of our collective action, right? So this idea of an exquisite corpse, you know, when we live in a country like the United States, which touts individuality over everything else, how is it that we can become a sum of our best parts? How is it that we can work together in coalition building, in collaboration? And there's many artists here today that I've had the pleasure of working with. Viva Ruiz, with Thank God for Abortion, repping that. Carlos Mote is here, Dorian Wood is here. So many beautiful artists. And I really believe in the power of art and the power of those of us who use our body in our art, the radical presence of embodiment, the radical presence of being here and now and channeling, you know, and really exchanging energy with each other. That is a form of embodiment that we have to push for. Yeah, so I'll just stop there.
Thank you all so much. I'm thinking about where to start. You know, the idea of the exquisite corpse, right? Tavia explained that at the beginning. This idea of like something that is co-created, collectively created body, and you know, an example of that from childhood. I remember those little mix and match books where you'd get like one kind of a head and another kind of torso and another kind of lower part, right? And maybe as a trans kid, I gravitated towards that sense of that hybrid. And I wonder, you know, how do you relate to that idea of a hybrid body? Has there been throughout your lives a desire to have a body that looks in a gendered way unified, and then have you moved out of that? Or how do you relate to that idea of a body that has multiple parts to it?
I have a difficult relationship with my body to begin with, and second with the changes that I made to my body, and I came to realize that most of the changes that I made to my body were not really a conscious decision that I made. And it's not like I hate any of the changes that I made. I love my body now. I'm okay with what I did. It's totally fine. But in my case, the changes that I did to my body were extremely related to belonging to a certain group. And a lot of the changes that I did to my body were just a matter of safety, right? A matter of like, if I look more like a woman, I may not get beat up tonight, right? So another case is a lot of the modifications that I did to my body were like, if I have this kind of ass, I will make more money, right? I can charge more, right? It was like I did a lot of porn, and I remember like with boobs with 600 cc's boobs, you would make like $3,000 a scene. Now, if you had 1,000, you made $6,000 a scene. It was that crazy, and so I of course I got 1,200. I was like, I'm not gonna go to 1,000. I get 1,200, right? And then my back is still paying the consequences of that shit, you know, because I'm like my back is destroyed. So a lot of the modifications that I did to my body were the result of other factors, right? That they were not. And that doesn't mean that I dislike those changes or that it was hard for me. I did it and I'm fine with it. But somehow I think that in my case, the modifications of my body related to gender at this moment are not significant. And I remember being 17 years old and not relaying to my body to capture who I was. I was who I was at age 17 with a body that maybe didn't translate to who I was to people, but I was okay with that. I was like, I'm this young, gorgeous girl without boobs, right? Or without hips, or like with a big nose, or with a whatever, right? I didn't relate it. I feel like most of the modifications of my body were the result of extreme pressure to belong or to survive or to procure for myself. And that doesn't make it bad, right? The modifications are there and they're fine and I'm happy with them. And it's not like I want to undo everything. I'm just rethinking how I did it, why I did it, and what it meant for me to change my body at its time.
That is such an important thing to point out, I think. The fact that because there's always this narrative about empowerment, you're trapped in the wrong body and you're becoming who you are, when in fact so much of it is about these sort of external pressures that are, again, forcing us to adhere. Like I have taken a stance of like, I'm not going to intervene, with like a medical intervention in my body. Society is the problem. My body is not the problem. But I'm now actually at a point where I'm like more than halfway through my life and I'm like, I just want to fucking take my shirt off. I want to go hiking with my shirt off. I want to go swimming with my shirt off. So I'm going to have top surgery. Not because I'm like becoming who I am, but because I want to take my shirt off and I'm tired of being like looked at strangely when I do that. So again, I'm not in the wrong body. I'm just tired of having to tolerate the sort of, constant intervention that you become when you just want to eat a pancake and a dime. You know what I mean? Just like, yeah.
Yes, people wanting to paint you a certain color, but you feel a different color, or put you in a certain category, but you're in a different category, such as myself. I'm a non-binary person. I consider myself to be genderless, and I'm halfway there. I had an orchiectomy in 2018, which was one of the best things I've done for myself. And regarding body acceptance and how I reconcile this struggle that was called, hey, I'm trapped in the wrong body. Oh, get out! No, which body is it today? Which body is wrong for me today? I was having those thoughts, and then I finally reconciled it this way. When people ask me, are you a man or you're a woman? I tell them, I am both and I am neither. There. So you make of that what you want to make of, but I know what it means to me. I know how I feel. And I have love for myself the way I am, whether or not society agrees, or likes, or whatever. That's none of my concern. My concern is being able to live my life happy as a free person, as a member of the LGBT community at large, and someone who is not just saying, hey, I can do shows and I can march in parades. I want to be an active and contributing member of my community. So that's why it was important for me to be here today, because these forums is exactly what's needed for the transgender community. I believe we need to have more of these all over the world.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. I'm thinking of Cecilia, the way you were phrasing it, like you're processing, how you have modified your body, and you're saying it's not a bad thing, it's okay. You're just kind of with it, right? And I think about this idea of regret, that this sort of specter of regret that comes up when people talk about trans people and trans bodies and surgery, and well, what if you regret it? And especially with young people, like, what if you regret it? And as if regret is something that can't be lived with and processed and transformed too, right? So I guess I'm just kind of reflecting on that idea as well, of sort of like we're all living in bodies that are constantly changing and aging, and who we are in them is changing along with it too, right?
Yeah, like, I don't know if in this room is somebody who doesn't regret something. We all regret shit, right? I regret most of everything. Right. I regret, right? Most of every decision, especially every fucking partner that I had, is a huge regret. It's a history of regret. No, I love my exes. Except that girl from Puerto Rico. I think, anti-trans sentiment have capitalized so much around the idea of regret. And like, the reality is that, you know, most of trans people that I know that have modified their body, including myself, I don't know anybody who regrets anything in a way that is dramatic. And I know a lot of people who regret shit, right? I regret some of my silicone, right? Because, not because of the silicone, I regret that it moved to other places that I didn't want it to move, right? Hopefully it's been, now they're removing it, so I'm gonna put myself into some kind of like a project to see if they can remove it. But I live with regret every day, right? So I don't know what the big deal with regretting shit is, right? You know, we all live with regret all our lives, and we are still here, right? And also, at the end of the day, if you can live with your regrets and you don't want to live, that also should be a decision for you to make, right? And nobody else.
I think you mentioned something very important, and that's something that needs to be talked about, either through therapy and counseling, and that is the topic of regret. I have known some transgender women who have regretted their transition and are over there saying, if only I knew I had to do this, that, and that, and live this way, I probably would have made a different decision, and now I'm regretting it. Well, when people ask me, well, or they just say, well, you're going to live to regret what you're doing to yourself. Well, I've been living like this for 23 years. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I don't see anything to regret. Now, if I had gone through with my female transition, with the gender confirmation, I am pretty sure that feeling the way I am now and with my mindset, where I am with my body and acceptance of myself, I would definitely be one of those that would be sitting here saying, I regret transitioning. Yeah, and that's why I stopped my hormone therapy just last week, in fact, and I'm considered myself to be a detransitioner now. And that's why the topic of detransitioning is real important to me, because as I myself go through the process, I want to share my experience with people so that other people can understand that, yes, detransitioning really is a thing. It's not just something that someone woke up and said, oh, wow, you know, I had my wake-up moment and I'm going to detransition. I don't know what I'm talking about or what it's doing, but no, it is a real thing. Detransitioning is real, and I know that some people have issues with their detransitioning, and I feel for them because they have either already done their top surgery and their bottom surgery, or one or the other, or both. I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones because I have always thought and kept in mind the fact that one day I'm going to have to ask myself, do I or do I not regret what I'm doing to myself? And I went into my transformation, my dual transformation journey with that mindset. Am I or am I not going to regret it? What are people going to think of me? What are they going to say? And people, yeah, it came from all over the place. You have to develop a thick skin, or thick scales in my case, and just let it slide. But I think that even with the issues that the transgender community is facing today, including this whole detransitioning, because there are so many people doing detransitions nowadays, I think it's something that needs to be brought up to the top of the conversations, and understanding. People need to understand what it is a person is going through when they are detransitioning, so they can know how to be an advocate or some kind of support. Like family, you know, it's important to talk to family. When I talk to my family, oh my God, I come from a staunch Catholic Mexican family, raised in South Texas, where the spirit of machismo is well and alive today. And it's hard for me to open up and talk to my relatives, to my families, the people who love me, because they don't know what to say. They look at me and go, when I tell them, oh, I'm having troubles with my hormones, or I'm thinking of changing or detransitioning, it like goes over their head. They don't have no idea what I'm talking about. So I think it's important to have the discussion up front, and we need to be talking about detransitioning more.
If I may, really
Yes.
quick, it's really interesting how Dragon talks about like stopping hormones and feeling at the transition moment, and it just made me think like, you know, the ideas of transition or detransition are so personal and different for everybody, because I am going to about a year without hormones and I never felt more trans in my life, you know? So how different our relationships are from one to another, and how damaging has been for our community the idea of being put into the same concept consistently.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately, the only real transition we can rely upon is death, right? Life and death. We're on a one-way street, you know? and the constant mutability of our bodies, right?
And transition and detransition also get positioned as another kind of binary, right? Instead of the complexity that we all live in. Absolutely. You know, think about body modification, and Cassils, you and I were talking earlier about sort of like how our bodies, how trans bodies also modify the public body, right? That a trans person in public space, somebody who's visibly trans in particular, has an impact on the sort of psyche around us, right? And I'm thinking of that as we're in this massive anti-trans backlash right now. So maybe, I don't know if you could speak, each of you, on, you know, what is it like to move through the world in your body? How have you felt you have modified the people around you, in a sense, or impacted, like, we get into people's heads, right? How have you had that experience of getting into people's heads?
My experiences as a modified person have been all across the board. I've met people from all walks of life, from all over the world. And as many people as I've met, I have had probably that many in number of comments or questions. I love the questions, because that shows that people are interested in not just you know, me being a transsexual, but what exactly am I doing, and to myself, and why? You know, the question is always why. So I always let people know that it's important for me to be vocal and to be present in the community as a member of the transgender community. And honestly, it wasn't until today that I actually felt reconnected. Like today, right now, this very moment, I feel reconnected with the transgender community, and I'm so happy about that, because I had cut myself away. I got tired of all the criticism, of all the craziness, or you're making us all look like freaks, you know, you don't represent us. So I said, okay, I'll walk away, but I feel like I'm welcomed back, but just by being here with all of you, so thank you.
You are. You are.
Yes, welcome.
If I could add to that, I thought a lot about this narrative, because I'm like, I live in fear of being canceled all the time.
Don't we all?
No one can cancel you, Cecilia.
I live in fear of being canceled all the time, but let's promise that we keep this between us. But you know, it was a lot of trans people years ago that started like the narrative, like, you know, trans women are women, trans men are men, and I'm like, yay, you know, if you are, right? If you are, and that's fine. And the idea of kind of like avoiding the conversation that I have a dick, right? And that I am a woman with a dick, and the dick is there, right? And is there and is loved by me and by others, right? And you know, and I think like it was with good intentions, right? It was like the idea of normalizing trans people, right? And I get it, right? But it was no room for people like me to say like, yes, I am a woman and it is a dick. Again, I repeat, it is a dick there. And it's loved by me and by others, right? And this thing of this idea of this idea of I made my living for 30 years because I was this woman with the dick, right? And I was fetishized a lot, and that was my business, being fetishized, right? That's how I made my living, and I never had a problem with it. And my idea of being fetishized may be different than others, right? But sometimes I am worried that we are stopping ourselves from expressing our desire of like, what do we desire in terms of bodies, right? What do I desire in a body, right? What if I desire a fat body? Does that make me fetishize fat people? I don't know, but is that possible? Is that possible for a man to desire the body of this woman that contains a dick without being fetishizing others, right? Because I do know what I desire, right? And I don't feel comfortable expressing it because, again, I have fear of being canceled consistently. I repeat, you know. So, you know, I think that we have an opportunity to normalize desire beyond gender, right? I desire this specific body, and that is okay. And that doesn't mean that I fetishize that body. I just desire it, and I'm here to honor it and to love it and to revere it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Totally.
Yes, totally.
Am I canceled? Am I canceled?
You know, no. Please.
No, I think so much of it is the lifelong quest to to feel at ease in one's body, right? Or to feel present in one's body. I was thinking about this one work that I've been performing like maybe a few times over the 10 years, and I used to disassociate when I performed it. And it's only very recently that I've been through a very intensive meditation practice that I'm now able to stay totally present in my body when I perform. And yet I feel like so much of my life has been about disassociation, you know, despite this incredible methodology of constantly working with my body, but almost as if I'm looking down at it, forcing it as a tool to maintain certain standards, or okay, get your heart rate up at this rate, or thicken your tendon mass to this, or increase bone density to such, or lung capacity to X. Like really thinking about it as a tool, as opposed to, you know, having a sort of oneness. And I really think that it's incredible. Like we were talking about this last night over dinner, that there's just so much pressure from the world for us to hate ourselves, actually, and to be embodied and to truly love and accept yourself, as kind of cheesy as that sounds, is like an incredibly radical act, right? And it's also something that is hard work. Yeah.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes. We could talk a lot longer, but are there questions that folks have? Over here? Yep. Hi.
How like fantasy and imagination and projected image of self has played a role in your decisions to transition, to detransition, to modify your body, and how those fantasies come to be actualized or maybe fail, and like how you grapple with that and move forward.
Babe, I live in a full fantasy. It is a fantasy world up here. It's like, my fantasy is beyond. I do have a lot of fantasies about my body and what I want from my body. I remember I saw unfortunately, it wasn't porn. Unfortunately and fortunately, I don't know. This person I think they live in Germany, that they have a vagina between their balls and their anus. It was a vagina created there, and I was like, that's what I want. And I've been having that fantasy, and if I get somebody to do it, I'm not gonna go to NYU because they're not gonna do it here in NYU. Definitely.
As a psychoanalyst, I can tell you that's what everyone wants. Yeah.
I just want to be fucked in a pussy that I don't have, and I don't want to replicate it in my asshole. I wanna be fucked in a pussy that I don't have. So that fantasy has been lived in many ways in my head, and somehow I feel like I like to pursue it at a certain point. We'll see. No, I NYU again. Who knows? Imagine if I go and they're like, oh yeah, we'll make you 2. We'll give you 2. I'll be like, gag.
One more question, maybe? Yeah.
Thank you all. I'm thinking about the trans youth. I'm thinking about the trans youth and parts of the country that are like faced with laws and policies that kind of make it impossible or difficult to navigate hormones or transitioning and modifying and seeking gender affirming care. And do you have any advice for the trans youth without community, without access to resources, who are feeling isolated in their transitioning? So I guess that's
something I think a lot about, actually. And I don't know if it's so much advice as to say that those of us that are in states or have, papers, citizenship, ability to leverage, it is our duty to do everything that we can to protect those children. And I do think that can be done in a myriad of ways. It can be done through, multiple practices. I do it as an artist. I'm about to do a project on the steps of the state capitol in Texas in coalition with a group called TENT, which stands for Trans Education Network Texas. And it's really a way of offering service as an artist towards organizers, as a way of creating a sort of mediagetic spectacle. And not only a mediagetic spectacle, but using over 70 trans bodies to come to the state capitol, a space that is a site of trauma for trans people, where over 182 pieces of legislation have been passed in Texas, which is the second largest trans populace in the United States. How can we use our bodies not just in the way that we herald and yell protest slogans, but how can we come together as a collective to make a fantasy, an image of pure beauty that is inarguable, because we are beautiful, And so these collective acts of beauty that then can also correspond and dovetail into the work of organizing, so they can be esoteric, they can be poetic, but they can also be directly related to organizing and be in service. And so that's a tactic that I take. And I also think that those of us that are elders, we get to live by example, right? And we get to create containers of care for younger trans, in my case, artists, and provide them with experiences where they don't have to explain, where they're given a space to be their full selves, yeah? So I think we can do it in small and large ways.
It's so hard to thank you for that, though. It's so hard to give advice, because when you give advice, you have to live to the responsibility of the advice that you gave. So I'm like, I don't know, I want to give advice, But something is bringing me to say the phrase that I hate the most in this world, that is, it gets better. One time, I yelled at this woman that was wearing a pin in the train. I was like, for some of us, doesn't. She was like, what? And I'm like, your pin. And she's like, oh I'm just trying to go to work and be supportive. And I just yell at her. Yeah, I feel I created some trauma on some people in the L train. I was having a bad day. What do you want me to do? You know, I just think that sometimes, I must say, for me, achieving some of the joy that I achieved as a trans person meant cutting off a lot of systems that we have a tendency to believe we will need, like family, like country, like space, like relationships, right? And it's nothing bad with it. You know, I was able to live in another country with another language as an undocumented person without my family and without talking to them. And I think in order to achieve, for me, to achieve some of my goals as a trans person, the most important step was not starting hormones or doing a surgery or anything that is forward, but cutting off things that I was attached to, right? So I think that when we think about achieving those things, we just don't need to think about what's forward, but what's behind us and what are the things that we need to cut off. And it worked for me.
Excellent.
I guess.
I think we have to end there. Thank you all so much. Thank you.